If you're neurodivergent, at some point you've experienced interruption rage, where you've been engaged in an activity, a task at work, an assignment at home, playing a video game, and somebody has approached you and spoken to you. They've tried to make conversation, they've reminded you of something, they've asked you to pay attention to a different task, and you've been consumed with sudden, uncontrollable, inexplicable rage. And it's not a result of choice. You're not choosing to be angry. It's just a knee-jerk reaction. It happens instantaneously. It's often disproportionate. And the other person looks at you askance like, why are you overreacting to such a simple thing? I'm just trying to talk to you. It's a normal thing for me to want to approach you and talk to you, especially if this is part of your responsibility, let's say on a job, to respond. Or if you have responsibilities at home and chores outstanding or tasks that need to be done or communications that need to happen. But for your brain, which struggles to get into focus to begin with, as a result of executive dysfunction, this is seen as a gross violation. We struggle to get into a state of flow, that pleasurable state where we're able to function at peak performance and engage in tasks, and the rest of the world disappears while we're in it. It can be quite blissful if you're engaging in a hyper-focus in something that you're passionate about, or if you're using it to recover from a working week, let's say playing a video game. You're trying to immerse yourself in that experience and trying to recover, and somebody walks in and interrupts you and interrupts your focus. It's very hard to get back into that state. So the anger is also proportional to that. It's the fact that you are going to have to spend a lot of time, inordinate amounts of time, refocusing, reestablishing the focus that you previously had and recovering from that interruption. And this phenomenon, this interruption rage, is the result of something called context switching or difficulty with context switching. It's been universally observed among neurodivergents that we as a population do struggle with switching contexts, switching our focus between two different things, which is why multitasking is so difficult for neurodivergents. We find it being pulled between focuses, we lose our ability to pay attention, we can't engage in the task, and we get very scattered. And so the other person interrupting us, it's not usually intended as a malicious act, it's not usually intended to pull us out of our flow state, but that's often what happens. And we spend so much energy trying to get into it to begin with, no wonder we feel so frustrated when we're then pulled out and then we try to get back in, and we know it's going to be very difficult. But this can cause a lot of tension and frustration in yourself and also in your relationships with other people, because neurotypicals, many of them will not necessarily struggle with context switching. They won't have this outsized reaction to being interrupted. So for a neurotypical, for you to suddenly go off at them or have an angry reaction, whether in your expression or your vocalization, they just think, this person clearly is overreacting. I'm just doing what's required of me, or just a normal human task. And they can be offended, they can be hurt, and rightfully so, because for them, that's just a normal thing to try to interrupt people if they have something pressing that they want to talk to you about. But for you, you're fuming, and they can't understand that. And this is where the double empathy problem kicks in, and both people can't see each other's point of view. The neurotypical can't necessarily understand that this difficulty with context switching is what has caused the anger in the neurodivergent. And the neurodivergent doesn't understand that for the neurotypical, it's very normative to kind of interrupt somebody to, in certain situations, to get their attention, to communicate something to them, to remind them. And what this situation really requires is a lot of empathy and compassion on both sides. A person who's interrupted probably will need a bit of time to cool down, and there might be non-intrusive ways to interrupt somebody. For example, I find that I prefer to be text messaged, so I'll get a vibration on my smartwatch and then I'll know that, or I'll get a reminder on my smartwatch. I'd prefer that to somebody walking in and asking me a question, pulling me out of my focus and interrupting my flow state. I tend to be a lot more higher functioning, so-called high functioning, with executive dysfunction. I've found ways to compensate for that. And I've also shaped my life to avoid situations in which I'll be required to context switch. And I think reducing environmental distractions, blocking out time for specific activities so that you won't be interrupted are other strategies you can engage in to ensure that you're able to stay in your flow state and not be interrupted and have this interruption rage. Have you found that you need to communicate your needs around context switching with other people? Or have you found that you've changed your schedule or made certain adjustments, or ask for different communication styles, for example, or other methods of compensating for it to deal with the challenge that's associated with context switching and with interruption rage? I would love to hear from you.